All right. I'm back. 2 repairs in 1 day. Unheard of, right? Um, I'm going to continue where I left off, and we're going to go through another quick repair on a, what is this one? R-112SW. I'm just going to keep plucking these off the shelf, and I have till about 4 o'clock today, till I have a family commitment, and we'll see how far we get. I don't know, my wife might want to hang out or do something too, so let's get going on this. And for whatever reason, I got some goo all over my fingers, so give me a second to clean up there. The compound that they used on this switch here was kind of gnarly and gross. Alright, so here we go. Same thing. I'm not even going to test it. I'm just going to assume it's bad. We will test the caps just for the heck of it. This one has some glue on it, but the glue has not turned brown yet. So this could be a early failure of something else. I'm going to guess not, but you never know. Either way, yeah, tell you what, let's plug this one in. I changed my mind. Since the glue is not bad, I want to see what it's doing. It'll probably turn on and work. Let's see what it does. I'm going to guess it turns on and works, but the problem's probably intermittent. The glue's not brown yet, though, so that's kind of a weird one for me, because I'm used to seeing the glue become conductive, and that's what causes, you know, some problems, and usually when the glue is turning brown, that means these caps are thoroughly cooked, but let's see what's happening with this one. We will put it on auto, phase at 0, LFE, and volume all the way down. We'll start current limited just for the heck of it. And I have no volume. Let's try on. Nothing. I don't want to turn the volume up too high. So we're getting nothing. No power. Let's make sure our power supply is working. Or at least part of the power supply. And then we can kind of go from there. I'm not going to pull the meter off to show you what's going on. I'm just going to tell you what's going on. Keep in mind there's some high voltages here. I'm going to check between the white and the black wire, and then the black and the red. Polarity doesn't really matter. So the main power supply is not turning on, which is kind of weird. Let's see if we have anything on the low voltage supply. And these are labeled. Power supply on, off, plus minus 15 volts on a ground. And this guy is 5 volts standby. So let's see if we have 5 volts. We do have 5 volts standby. Fuse is good. Let's see what we have on this guy here. We have 1.3 volts. I don't know which one's ground either. It's definitely not that one. Ground is the second pin from the right. So let's put ground on there and see if we have our 15 volt supply. I have nothing. Nothing there, and 1.5 volts, which I think is the on and off signal. So, Something is weird with this. My first thought is maybe the power switch is bad on the board, on-off switch. If not, maybe we're going to skip this one because it won't be a quick repair. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to kill the power. And in auto, there should be no connection at any of these. And there's not. Let's try standby mode. Standby mode, that works. Okay, so the switch is not the problem. Both switches are good. So is the problem with the power supply, or is the problem with the logic part of this board? I don't see any glue creating issues, so it's not the glue. This is an odd problem to have. Normally, if you're missing power, you're only missing 12 volts going to the amplifier chip. That is not the case. We are missing all the power. Let's leave the amp and stamp. Our voltage is correct. We're at 110 volts. Let's turn it on again, see what we have here. I used to remember how to trigger the power supply manually. I might have to grab a working amp to see. I think you got to just either connect the one signal to ground or give it 5 volts. I don't remember which it was. Hey Travis, thanks for watching. Sorry, I don't pay attention to the chat a whole lot, but hopefully this will help you get your stuff going. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in there, though. I'll try and get to them. So we have 5 volts, and we're missing everything else. No plus minus 15. And no output. We'll do a quick and dirty check of one of these other ones and see what we need to get the power supply going. I have way too many amps. Oh, wait. That's not good. My power cord needs replacing. Strain relief broke. The wires are still okay. Alright, let's see what this guy does again. The cord's okay for now. We'll replace it later. So this I already did a little bit of work on. I must have been using it to test something else. But I already did the really basic. I didn't even replace these two larger caps. I did the 3 right here, and I put the resistor on there. I must have just needed this real quick to test something. What is this? This is an R-112. It has the 400 watt power supply in it instead of the 300 watt. Let's see what we get on this one. I'm going to lay it down on my already crunched cord. So this guy turned on. My light bulb is dimly glowing. So I know that I'm going to have a signal here on the power supply. And we're getting minus 62 volts, and this side over here should be plus 62. And it is. So you have 120 volts DC there, so make sure if you're playing anywhere around these lines you're being careful. We should have plus and minus 15. This is a really weird angle to work at. Plus my probes are all twisted. Alright, let's see what we get here. Positive 15, minus 15, and I'm getting 1.5 volts on the signal line. Excuse me, I'm getting a phone call. Sorry about that. No questions. These subs, it seems like 2 to 3 years they developed these problems. The layout of the board is bad. They didn't really properly plan for the heat dissipation that they need. And that causes issues with the amp. I also noticed I put the wrong resistor in there, but it still seems to be working. The resistors are too close to this little group of capacitors here, and they get extremely hot, and they dry out the fluid inside the caps, and then they stop working, and those are in a critical part of the power supply. So that is what causes these to not work. I'm gonna guess that on this one here, it's an actual power supply problem, which is something I'm not used to seeing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find that out really quick by switching power supplies. And that's pretty easy to do by just swapping these wires. And if it is a power supply, I'm going to move on to a different amp. The goal is to get through as many of these today as possible, because I need to get my my work area cleaned up. Power is off. It was just draining the caps that are on the board. That's why, if you did see that, you saw a spark. This is really the quick and dirty way of doing this. I just want to keep the boards kind of separated a little bit. So I'm taking the power supply off this board that I know that works, and I'm feeding it into this amp that is not working. And I want to at least see if I can get the amp to trigger the plus and minus 15 volt supplies. If I can get the plus and minus 15 working on this plate, then I know that this power supply is bad. So we're just doing a little process of elimination. And I think I have an extra power supply somewhere on one of these boards, so I haven't done that yet. If it is, I'll take the time and we'll do a power supply swap. So let's see what's happening here. I need to make sure that this is on and the volume. I don't have a speaker hooked up, but I still want the volume turned low. So I don't think that is going to work. We will test it. Okay, yeah, it is working. I do have 15 volts. And I have minus 15, so it actually is the power supply. This power supply with this amp board seems to work. Here's something interesting. This is why I'm disappointed with Klipsch made in China. This component is supposed to be flat to the board. And if you look at the board, I can stick my wooden stick almost completely under it, and it's not really supported. So this one must have been made on a Friday. Something is, it needs to be fixed. It's just, I don't know, disappointing that You know, even though it is made in China, the quality control is still kind of lacking a little bit. Again, Klipsch just buys these amps. They don't make them, so I understand. Like, they do it so they can remain competitive in the market, but still, to me, that would be a failure. And it says that it was inspected right here. It's supposed to have a high pot test, something like functional test, air leakage, burn-in, and something else. But how does nobody see that when they're actually checking it? It's soldered in. I mean, it'll work, but it's just a not good quality, if you ask me. So I'm going to power that down. And we'll try the original power supply one more time, just to make sure it wasn't a bad connection, or, you know, verify any of the other components on the board. I have a lot more than 2 of these to repair. I think I still have 20 to go and probably 100 on my waiting list. So I always keep a couple of spares on hand just in case I do need to do something weird like that. You spend a lot of time chasing problems, you know, on this board when really it's just the power supply that's not functioning. And I've never seen one of these power supplies go bad, so I have no clue what went wrong or what's happening on there. Or, you know, it could just be something stupid like a loose connection. The power supplies on these are actually really good. It's these boards here that are kind of laden with problems. This one might require a full recap. Maybe it's got a bad cap somewhere on the passive side of the board. But that actually doesn't make, well, I don't know. Because the other board was able to power it up, so it's probably something on the power supply. We'll have to think through that a little bit. But it never hurts to double check and make sure that everything's good. So make sure that, just for the heck of it, I'm going to switch to voltage selector switch too. Switch that a few times. I'll check the fuse anyways. I'm sure the fuse is good because I was getting 5-volt standby, but let's check it anyways. It doesn't hurt. Yeah, fuse is good. I'll check to make sure it's the right one too, just for the heck of it. It's not even close. Oh no, okay, it is. The 115s use 5 amp fuses, and it has a 5 amp in there. I'm used to 3.15 amps. The fuse is good. Let's put him back. And let's try again. So our connections are all back in. Just for the heck of it, I'll plug and unplug them on the board side just to make sure that they're good over here as well before trying to fire it up. Sometimes they get silicone or, you know, some junk in there and they don't actually make a connection. It's very possible that the amp itself is missing a part too, or the power supply is missing a part. I've seen that before on the assembly line. They'll just forget to put something in, or the machine will run out of parts. I don't know how exactly you pass tests like that, but again, the assembly lines aren't known for their highest quality. Alright, we are on 110 volts. We cycled that power switch. We checked the connectors. Let's fire it back up and see what happens. And it is not turning on. So 5-volt standby. We do have the 1.5 volts going in, but the lower voltage, none of the supplies are turning on. So this power supply is bad. I'm going to go find a donor plate because I know I have one. So give me a second and I'll be right back. So I'm going to use this plate that I have. It's the same model, but this one has broken switches on it. So instead of selling this one with broken switches, maybe I'll make a hybrid out of it and block off these switches and put a different... I only have an extra 115 power supply. I took one of the boards all apart so I could do some testing on it and make some schematics for it. But you know, I don't mess with this glue anymore. It's not worth it. These things are so readily available on eBay. I just don't even bother. It's just a total waste of time. So what I will do is do a swap on this side of the supply. Now they use this nasty red stuff on here, so this is going to be a challenge to get off. I'll show you the secret to that. At least my secret. I don't know if it's a big secret, but you do need a good screwdriver. And you will need a source of fire. So to get this bad guy off, what I do, you can use the hot air gun. Yeah, let's use the hot air gun. You can use like one of these little mini cigar lighter torches. They have like a very small controlled flame that you can barely see. But I'll use the hot air for now, just because it's a little easier. I'm just heating up the red junk that's on top there. And then the screw comes right out. This red stuff is like a Loctite, I guess. But just a drop of heat and it comes right off. So doesn't smell the best, but that's how you get it off. And a lot of times it'll actually be in the screw hole. So you have to add heat so you could jam the screwdriver down into the screw so you can actually get a bite on there to turn it. But you don't need a ton of heat, just enough to soften it up a little bit so you can actually get it off. It gets kind of rubbery. If you heat it too hot, it'll actually turn into a liquid. You don't want to do that. Then it becomes really hard to work with. It's really difficult. So we're doing our first power supply transplant. This one's got a ton of junk in the screw, but and you have to push kind of hard because you're actually forcing the stuff out of the screw head. So you need a screwdriver that actually fits the screw. And if you don't get all the junk out, then you can heat it up with a torch or with something else to kind of liquefy it and get it out of there. If you're going to burn it out, I would do it outside because the burning plastic smells absolutely terrible. Sometimes you can get lucky and it'll like peel out when you're taking the junk off. But you don't have to get it all out, just as much of it as you can. And I believe there are 6 screws in these power supplies. These connectors are safety connectors. Don't just yank on them. If you yank on them, you're going to damage them. To get these connectors out, there's a little locking tab in there. You got to depress the locking tab. Let me zoom in on that. I know I've shown it before, but we'll do it again. Let me see if I can get the silicone boot off to show it. Oh, well, too late. Let's do it now. Yeah, so you can see on the connector right here, there's this little tab. And you just got to push it down. And that allows the connector to unlock. So you don't have to push really hard, just enough to depress it and then pull on the connector while you're depressing that down. If you don't do that, one of two things are going to happen. You're going to rip the wire out of the connector and it's going to be stuck on there, or you're going to tear out the blade off the board, and then you're really going to be in a world of hurt because those are not easy to fix. So if you If you take your time, it's okay to do. So take your time. Just make sure you press your tabs in. Be gentle with it. You can, even if they're plugged in backwards like this one is, you can still see in there to see if you're pushing the tab. And that is one nice thing. The power supplies are pretty easy to replace. These boards, let me zoom back out. The amplifier part of these boards, forget about it. Like, you're going to spend so much time getting this glue off and risk damage to the board. I mean, if you really have to do it, I would put the whole plate in the oven. You know, put it on the lowest setting. Heat the whole thing up until this is like gooey, and then you got to remove the whole thing at one time. It's a tremendous amount of work. I would say at that point, if you have something severely wrong with this to where you have to pull this board out, throw the amp out and replace it. They put that glue on there to seal the audio connectors. It's a really cheap way to do it, which is why they do it. I don't necessarily agree with it, but that's how they save cost. If you look at some of the older amps, they have like plastic boxes that cover them up with foam and, you know, maybe a little bit of glue on them so you can actually service them and work on them. Much better way to do it, but it costs more to do, so every penny apparently matters when you're making a, you know, million of these or however many of these things they sold. Still good subs though. I mean, I can't knock them too hard. I think they're still a good quality sub. They just have a little bit of, you know, work that needs to be done to them to make them reliable. And the power supplies are well made. They don't use the you know, tier 1 caps on the power supply. I think they're tier 2 or 3, but the power supplies on these aren't really heavily stressed, so they can probably get away with that. And since the power supplies are so easy to replace, if you do have a power supply failure, like the board on this board that I'm working on here, just swap the power supply out. Buy a donor amp and swap the power supply. I guarantee you can find plenty of these on eBay. Alright, so this is almost off. There's a piece of sticky foam underneath this thing. That's a relatively newer Klipsch thing too. The SW350 and the SW450 subs have this sticky foam under them. Just kind of supports the board. It's a little weird to me, but that's how they do it. Makes the board a pain to get off. As they are very, very sticky. It feels like I'm missing a screw, but I don't think I am. I think it's just the foam. Just the foam. So the foam is really only there for support. You don't really have to be fancy in removing it. Just kind of get it started. You can cut through it if you want. That's what I'm going to do. Just slowly cut through it a little bit by little bit. I'm cutting on the plate side because it's not going to peel off. It's stuck pretty good to the bottom of the amp. A long razor blade would be much better than the one I'm using, but once you get like 70% there, it comes off pretty easy. Bad power supply out. We'll deal with that at some other date. Now we are going to take good power supply off the board that has the bogus switches. Both of them broke. How do you break these switches? Somebody tell me how you break these. I would love to know. Like, I mean, even if you rammed it up against a wall, it would be hard to break these. I don't understand that. They're not flimsy switches. It just blows my mind how somebody could break those. But if if anyone that sees these does need an amp, and they don't care about the switches, I could set them to whatever position you like and ship you one, and it'll be discounted. I plan on listing these in the next few days. I know everybody's going to get excited because they want their Christmas subwoofers playing for the family parties, so I will try and get as many of these listed and shipped, as I can. And my wife will definitely thank you for helping me get the stuff out of the basement. Alright, locking tabs are out. Same deal on this. We're going to put a little heat on these. I mean, you can do it without heat, it's just more difficult. And you can see the screwdriver just doesn't want to go in the screw. This, I'm doing 120C, so I'm not even going that hot, but it's hot enough to make this kind of rubbery and soft. And the screwdriver goes right in. Now I'm not going to clean off these screws because I already have 3 that are good. I'll just throw them in my bag with the bad power supply and we'll move on from there. I may not even bother repairing that power supply. I might just find another amp because these have silicone in them and they're kind of potted well. So getting that to actually turn on and behave could be challenging because you have to dig all that stuff out and find out what's the problem, what's going on. It's probably something silly, but I won't know until I actually get into it and dig into it, so we'll save that for a future video. And that's the first, I've worked on a bunch of these. This is the first one I've seen go bad, so this is a pretty rare problem. And I believe these power supplies are available on AliExpress or Alibaba. It's just a very common switch mode power supply that's probably used in many, many different things. Common problems that I would think would be wrong with it are these opto isolators. Those would take the signals from these guys and put them over to the control chip, which is here. That would be my initial guess. It's somewhere on the control side. It's not receiving the turn power on signal. So I would say it definitely can be fixed. It's just how much time you want to invest in fixing a cheap supply. Alright, so same thing again. We're going to cut this off. I don't have any long razor blades, so I'm just going to use my little chisel X-Acto knife that I use for everything. I love this thing. Let's see if we can cut this one long ways. And this is, these are screwed down in 6 places, so I really don't think you need to do do anything with the foam. If you want to, you could use like a little E6000 glue just to glue the foam back down to the board. I really don't think it's necessary. But if you wanted to, you could. I don't really know why. I think they put it in there to keep the center of the boards from sagging. That would be my guess. Sometimes when these things get hot, the boards will kind of warp and run into issues. Alright, that should be enough. Maybe. You know, cut through the foam. Don't put too much stress on the board. If the board don't want to come off, keep cutting foam. It's better to do that than it is to crack a board just because it won't come off. Alright, good power supply. Take that guy and set him aside for later. Alright, now we just reverse the process. Take the good supply, throw it on the board that has the good amplifier board, and then we can start the rework on the amp board. This one, even though this has seen very little service life, like the glue has not even began to turn brown, I'm still gonna. I mean, the caps on this I can almost guarantee are good, because it just hasn't been used. But we're gonna replace them anyways with higher quality caps, at least in that area. But if you wanted to just do an even quicker repair on something like this, like if your glue hasn't started turning brown and your resistor still looks brand new, just take the resistor off, put the new resistor on the bottom, and be done with it. That would be an acceptable repair. But since I'm going to warranty this for 2 years, I'm going to do it right. Otherwise, I'm going to have a bunch of amps coming back to my house, and I don't want that. So, same thing. We're going to put a little heat on, heat up some of that remaining plastic, and then we're just going to tighten the screws down. And wherever it hardens is where the screws will remain. And put them on fairly tight, you know, not tight enough to snap the screws, but a good hand tight. I never thought about listing these on the garage sale forum. Yeah, I could do some of those on Klipsch. I would like to try and get away from eBay. eBay charges way too much in fees. Like, by the time I pay all the eBay fees on there, I barely cover my, parts that I have put into the amp, plus time. I'm not trying to make a profit on these. This is a hobby, not a business. I don't want anything to do with turning this into a business. Not now, anyways. Maybe when I retire from my regular career, I would think about doing that, but it's just too much. And in order to make sure it's, being run as a legit business, there's all kinds of tax rules and laws, and you got to dedicate a certain amount of time to it, and I don't know. I don't want to deal with any of that. So it will remain a hobby. But I will definitely post some of these on the garage sale forum. That's a good idea. Price on them, I think for the quick and dirty ones, it's just going to be $75 with a 2-year warranty, and buyer pays shipping. And then if they want to, they can send me their old amp back. If they don't, they can throw it away. Or hold on to it for parts or whatever they want to do. I don't really need any more of these amps right now. So if they want to send it to me, hey, great. That's cool. I'll take it. If they don't, that is also fine with me. I gotta get to some of my other bigger, better subs. I have a lot of Velodynes and Sunfires I need to get to. So here we are. Like I said, you can see the glue down here is like a nice clear yellow color. So the glue is actually in good shape. Is the garage sale on the Klipsch forums, Travis? The ones that I have is I have the R-115, R-110, and R-112SW. And then I have a bunch of other ones sitting on the shelf there behind me for different other models. I have a Sub 10, a Sub 12, an RPW10, I believe, an RW10D. I got too many amps. I have amps all over the frickin' place. I wish my camera pivoted all the way around. I'd give everybody a peek of actually what it looked like. It's chaos. Just looking at it terrifies me. Just for the heck of it, I'm just gonna pop off this 330. I want to see what the tolerance is like on that one from the factory. So this is a very lightly used factory cap. I want to see if they're as good as the Nichicons are, which I don't think they will be, but let's see. Here's a brand new one. Never used. And we're reading 312. That's well under 10% tolerance. Closer to 5%. Let's see what a new one does. This amp may have never actually been used. I bought a whole pallet of these from a guy in California. So they were unknown condition. I think they were from like the Klipsch authorized repair center. You package your amp in and send it to them, and they send you out a replacement. I don't even believe they fix them. I think they just throw them out, to be honest. Well, they must not throw them out. They sell them to a e-waste person, and then that e-waste person sold them to me. So in some strange way, the circle of life is complete with these things. They go from somebody that owned it to Klipsch, then to a e-waste guy, to an auction site, then back to me, and probably eventually back to Klipsch. Alright. So that's what the glue should look like. It should be clear and yellow, or translucent and yellow. Let's see who makes this cap. The Katuos, or Kiyudos, or whatever the heck they are. So this one's pretty good too. This is within 5%. So this amp has not seen really any damage. I might just replace the resistor on here, give it a 2-year warranty, and send it. I'm going to say that this amp has never been actually powered on. And getting the source of the heat away from all the capacitors will definitely even with the OEM caps, keep this thing up and running. And keep in mind, like this amp is not somebody's personal amp that they sent to me to repair. This is my stash of amps, which is why I am offering a longer warranty on it and not replacing all the caps on the board. I'm doing it just mainly to save time. And because I have so many of these, I just really don't mind taking a chance that they're gonna, have issues or go bad. And if they do, whoever's bought one of these from me, they know. Just send me an email and send me the bad one, and I'll get you a new one out, as soon as I possibly can. I have no problem even sending it out with the factory caps on this one, because I don't think it's ever been used. So as we've seen before, putting a little bend in, the 5-watt resistor. Actually, this might even be a 7-watt. No, this one's a 5-watt. 5-watt resistor from either DigiKey or Mauser. And we're going to throw it on the bottom. I actually am going to put this resistor back in, or this capacitor. Because in my opinion, this is still serviceable. And if repaired properly, I don't think it's going to have any problems. So we'll get the resistor soldered in, and we'll bend it over and power it up and see if we get a good test out of it. I'm going to say we will. And then we will move on to the next one. I'm actually going to power it up and let it run for a few minutes. These resistors do kind of have like a little bit of a smell to them when you power them on and they get hot for the first time. So I try to give them like a little bit of a burn-in to dissipate a little bit of that. I'm making sure that when I'm putting it on here, it's not going to touch anything. Space it reasonably off the board so it can get some air under it. Make sure it's not going to short out to, this cap lead that's over here. If we need to, we can just trim it down just for a little bit of safety measure. But I'm going to guess this is a factory Klipsch amp that had a defective power supply that never made it into service. It probably went to somebody's house. They contacted them and said, hey, this isn't working, or it was returned to the store and then it made its way back to the repair facility somehow, and they just swapped the amp. I don't think this thing has any hours on it at all. But let's see what it does now. And be careful what you touch if you're plugging these things in too. Don't stick your hands all over the metal and heat sinks on here. Just touch one spot. Don't want anybody to get zapped. There is a lot of voltage here, so be careful. Be careful when you're working with anything electronics. Alright, power is off. Let's hook up our speaker. And then while that's doing its thing, maybe we'll play with the dead power supply a little bit and see what we can find on there. Alright, volume's all the way down, power is locked to on, everything else looks good. Let's see what happens. That's a good sign. And I'm not getting the little scope out, but I'll give another woofer visual, because that was kind of fun. If I can get it in the camera. Turn the frequency down so the camera can actually see what's going on. Again, this says Logitech on it, but it's really a Tang band speaker, which are pretty good woofers. So there's 18 hertz. So you can see that the sub is working, and it actually sounds pretty good. And yes, these do go down that low. That's 18, 15, 12. Yeah, 10's about as low as you're going to go. Really, 18 is, I think 20 is where they rate it to, but it goes a little bit lower than that, but the roll-off starts to happen pretty rapidly after that. So they're good subs. And the amps on them aren't terrible, they just have some issues. I think we had one more thing to correct on this guy, or was it the other one? Yeah, this guy. So before I let this thing get really heated up, I'm going to fix this inductor that was never properly seated on the board. That I cannot let slide. So I'm going to desolder both legs on that, and I'll push it down flush to the board and resolder it back in. Sure, it works like this, but that's just, it's not, in my opinion, that's not right to send something out the door like that. Yeah, but the microphone I'm using doesn't pick up any bass, really. It's hard to get any of that to convey, unless I put like a piece of paper or something on it, then you can kind of hear like the raspiness of it. So it's better to give a visual, either put it on the little oscilloscope so you could see it, or actually show the excursion on the cone. That's really the only way. I'm actually thinking about modifying my table and putting a glass insert in there and putting a woofer underneath it so you can see the cone moving. That'd be kind of cool. I don't know if I'll do that or not, I just thought it sounded cool. Alright, power is off, and whatever energy was in there should have been dissipated through the speaker. And just like that, it is better than it was factory, just pushing it into place. Keep in mind, this is like the quick and dirty series of repairs, so we're not really getting into anything, you know, too deep or crazy. It's more about just processing as many of these as I can, making them work, and making sure that, you know, they get back into service. And, you know, I'm extending the warranty to compensate for the fact that I'm not doing a full recap on there. But you think about it, you pay $75 for an amp, and it lasts you a year. That's $7.50 a month, basically. Like, I think you did pretty well. I'm gonna power this back on and let it burn in for a minute. Let this resistor get hot. The thing I like about putting these resistors on the top of the boards here is the amplifier sits like this inside of the sub. So all of your hot air that's going to want to rise is going to rise up and away from the board, and it's not going to get trapped on the board. I think that's a much better way to do it. It doesn't get hot enough to start a fire. I mean, it'll get hot enough to burn your finger, but it's not going to get hot enough to set anything on fire. So I would feel comfortable with that. Plus, if I'm sending you an amp back, I'm putting a note in there that says, make sure you turn these things off if you want them to last. So hopefully if you get an amp from me, you don't leave it powered on 24/7 and actually kill it by, neglecting it. And here's my little note right here. You probably won't be able to read that on the screen because the light's going to wash it out, but it says right on there that, the rated life of capacitors is 2,000 to 5,000 hours. So if you leave this thing powered on 24/7 plugged into the wall, your rated life of your capacitors is, basically depleted within a year. Now, that has to do with, the temperature of the components too, but just unplug your stuff, turn it off, put it on a switch, buy a smart switch, buy a power strip with a switch, anything. Just turn it off and don't use the standby switch. The standby switch doesn't really do anything. It turns off the auxiliary supplies and the main power supply going in here, so you'll save this board by turning it off at the switch, but you'll still be cooking the power supply. So just don't do it. Unplug it. Takes 10 seconds to pull a plug out. Alright. Let's fire this guy back up and let him bake for a few minutes. We're still at 20 hertz. I'm going to go up a little bit higher. Go up to 34. That's my tolerable frequency that I can leave running in the background for a while. And I'm going to set him aside. And while I do that, we'll just take a look at this. And the reason I'm doing that is I want to bake that resistor in there a little bit. Let it get some of that like cooking ceramic smell off of the top of it. And let me zoom out here. You can see, at least for now. So I can touch this, and it's getting hot. Like if I leave my finger on there, it eventually will burn it, but it's not that hot yet. So there's really nothing to worry about. Let's see what's going on with this guy. I'm not going to dig into this heavily. I just want to look at it and see if there's anything that just stands out to me right away. Maybe it's something really goofy that's causing it to behave poorly. Of course, the connectors are underneath the foam. That alone makes me not want to really do anything with it. Just the adhesive they use on this is just terrible. Terrible for me, but I mean, it's a really good adhesive. It's super sticky. So they have some resistors on here to drain the caps after it's been powered off for a little bit. That's good. Here's the plus and minus 15, and then our power on and off signal goes into these circuits here. And it looks like it goes through a MOSFET or a transistor, and then it goes through these optocouplers. So I'm going to say that one of these optocouplers is either bad or not functioning. One of these transistors is bad or not functioning. Or something on the actual control side is not behaving. But we do have 5 volts, so the 5 volt standby is there. I don't know where that's generated from. Probably one of these auxiliary transformers. I don't know. So just a quick overview. If I was going to work on this amp, I would start with the signal here. We know that we had 1.5 volts going in, so that seemed like it was enough to turn it on. So I'd follow that back, through these circuits. I don't know exactly where it goes. It goes into, this where it's supposed to be resistor, and here, and through some of these diodes or whatever. But, I would work my way back to the optos and make sure that these, I was getting a signal on the one side of it, and then check and make sure I was getting a signal on the other side. This is the high voltage side on this side of the line here, and this is the, I mean, it's typically the low voltage side, but since we're using high voltage DC, this is just the DC side. So this is high voltage AC, this side's high voltage DC, and it's divided by this line that goes across the board here. So if you're working on one of these power supplies and it won't turn on, that's where I would start. And once you get back over to this side of the board and you still can't find the problem, take this thing and throw it. Be done with it. Don't waste too much time on it. It's not worth it. Not worth it. So we have another 112 that's got a good amp on it. Let's see what else we have here. This is a 115 that I pulled the board off of, and this was a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. I don't recommend doing it. So I have a spare 400 watt supply. This is just what I have under my desk, keep in mind. I'm not even going over to the shelf right now. I just want to see what I have here and start digging through all this. Get it out from under my feet. So here's another 115 that I started on. And it looks like I just did a very basic start to the repair, so I'll actually finish that up and do this one right. And let's start there next. Put this light away. So yeah, this guy's, it's hot now. It's hot enough to where I wouldn't want to leave my finger on it, but it's not hot enough to start a fire. I'll just leave that paper towel sitting on top of it and keep an eye on it. Never done that before, but I think you need something a lot higher to actually start something burning. We'll find out. No coffee today, orange juice. I had too much coffee this morning. So while this is running and breaking in a little bit, let's analyze what we need to do to this guy. And if any of you are on my waiting list that watch this or will watch this, keep in mind that if you want to, instead of having your amp repaired, I will gladly just do a trade-in so we can get it turned around real quick. I'm only going to offer that to like the first 20 people on the list. But I know some of you have been waiting for a while, and like winter time is amp time. Like in the summertime, I have too much going on. Even in the winter, I have a lot going on, but I generally I have more time once the snow starts falling and it gets cold, so that's generally when I work on this stuff. I am going to, this is the wrong resistor, so that's going to come out. Yeah, this thing's not even being phased. So it's hot. It's hot enough to burn your finger, but it's not hot enough to burn really anything else. And, by the time you get even 2 millimeters above it, I can leave my finger there all day long. So as long as nothing's touching the resistor in that location, there is nothing to worry about. I'll put a legal disclaimer in there, though. If you do replace this, you're doing it at your own risk. So if you do burn your house down, it's not my fault. I do have the disclaimer in my videos, just be safe when you're doing this stuff. They're not meant to be serviced. They're not meant to be handled. I don't want anybody getting hurt. So solder sucker's heated up. I'm going to take the cap out. I am going to take this resistor out. This resistor is actually an output resistor for what model is that? I think it's the RSW series, I think. I don't remember now. I have to go back and look. So I'm just bending the leads again. I'm bending them around a stick just to keep them away from the edges. You don't have to do that. Sometimes I just prefer doing it that way. About 1/8 of an inch. We're going to bend up the legs on there so we can actually solder it in place. And I'm going to go ahead and put this resistor back in there. I'm sorry, this capacitor, not resistor. We're going to put him in there, and we're actually going to stand it up on the board like it's supposed to be. I'm going to leave it spaced off just a little bit, just because the legs don't really match this layout on the board. They kind of did a funky layout that takes a different size cap than what's marked on there. Alright, now this guy is on over here, so I want to make sure I keep my solder away from there. That would be bad, just totally trash a new repair because I ran a string of solder through the circuits. That would be a bad day. Alright, so capacitor is in. I do need to swap the mains out. Might as well just pop them out now. This one does have some service life to it. It has been powered on and used, so and they're somewhat close to the heat, so I'm taking them out. And I want to get the glue off the board. If there was no heat like on that one that I don't think was ever used, I would say we're probably okay to leave them in there, but this one, not okay. They gotta go. I'm not getting a good suction on these, so sometimes you gotta crack the seal on these things. And a good whack will do that. And that just allows air to get behind it so I can actually suck the solder out. Which I'm not doing anyways because my solder sucker is jammed. Let's try again here. I gotta clean it out. Much better. There's still some glue on there. Alright, so this guy's been baking for a while. Still sounds great, no issues. I'm going to turn the volume down. Not all the way, just to where I can barely hear it. Kill the power. Alright, now we can set this guy in the done pile and move on to this one here. Give me a second, I'm going to go move this off the bench here. Alright. Let's get this guy going here. So we took the caps out and we've done our 3 replacements here. I'm looking at the board to make sure there's no glue on the boards, you know, where we need to remove it from. Underneath these caps, it seems to be pretty good there. There's a decent amount on this around these caps here and on a couple of resistors in there, so we're going to start working that out as best we can. I still need to make a better work area for these. I'll do that later today. I'll make a board that's on an angle so everybody can see what's going on in there. For now, I will improvise. Hey, I have to have a disclaimer. Like, everybody seems to be sue happy these days, and you know, even though I'm doing this as a hobby, I don't feel like getting sued. I do have an LLC, just in case somebody does like try to sue me for everything for some kind of freak accident. I'd prefer not to lose my home. So I could sue my company, I guess. Take my remaining woofers, but I pray that never happens. Most of the people that I, have done repairs for seem to be pretty cool and, understand that, this stuff can be dangerous and don't do anything stupid, but you never know. So yeah, be careful. Don't hurt yourself. If you don't know what you're doing, get some help. Ask me. I'll help you. I've been known to go on whatever the equivalent of FaceTime is, Google video or voice or whatever, and even Facebook video. I've helped people make connections before and remove their amps. So if you don't know what you're doing and you need some help, please ask me. I would rather, spend the 20 minutes to walk you through doing it, whatever you need to do safely, versus having you try to figure it out on your own. Again, once everything's unplugged, there's really no major risk. Sometimes the capacitors can store some voltage in it, but it's usually DC, so you might get a little zap, but it's not going to be a lethal zap. But still, like I'd prefer no zapping at all. So if you don't know what you're doing, you don't feel comfortable doing it, don't do it. Ask me for help. That's why the forums exist. That's why I make these videos, and whatever other reasons. I watch Mr. Carlson a lot. He repairs vintage tube equipment, and he has pretty much the same disclaimer. There's no parts in here that you should be messing around with, and you're doing so at your own risk. It's kind of like the signs you see when no lifeguards on duty at the beach. Swim at your own risk. Alright, getting the glue off. The glue by the caps really isn't too bad. Just because this is a higher voltage area of the board, I want it to come off. And I'm just kind of loosening it up with a little dental pick, which I need to call my dentist for and ask him if he has any more retired dental tools, because I need a new set of picks. Half of them, this is the only one I think I have left that's not broken. All the rest of them are broke. Again, if you're lucky enough to have one of the newer styles with the big white resistors in it, you don't have to go through all this crazy glue removing. Just really anywhere where it touches the board is a spot that's at risk. So if it's not touching the board, you can probably leave it. Now this one I am going to clear by this device because it's touching this power rail here, and that could cause a potential short. So there's another version of this amp somewhere that uses 2 inductors for something. And I don't know anything about how these amps really operate because there's no schematics available. So I assume that those are part of the power supply. They could just be for noise filtering. There's a number of different reasons what they could be for. I just have no idea, because I do not have a schematic. And this is a board that's more complicated than I would like to, you know, make a full schematic from on my own. Again, it's not really worth my time. So we're just going to take the glue off as best we can, try and solve any problems we have as best we can, and move on to the next one. This weekend is going to be Ampapalooza for me. Get as many done as I can. Tomorrow I will probably be working on the house, so I don't think I'll be doing any repairs. If I do, it'll be later at night. Alright, we got one more spot down here with some nasty brown glue. See if we can get it all off in one chunk. They laid it on pretty thick down by this capacitor down here. Should be able to get most of it out. You don't want to get it too hot down in there. Alright. The area where we would have any potential shorts is cleared. I'm going to leave a little bit down there by the one capacitor because it's holding it in place. I don't really feel like that's at risk. Let's put it back together. Power it on. See if we get another one going. Again, I already did some work on this, so actually we plugged it in, so we know this one works. Put 2 new Nippon tank caps in there. I don't really understand why these are needed. You have 4 huge caps over here, which feed this same power rail. Why do you need 2 big ones over there? Maybe the gauge of the wires isn't large enough. I don't know. It's an interesting one. I would like to know why you need those over there. Maybe the extra capacitance is needed. Maybe the example circuit from the amplifier chip on there shows having these there, so they put them there. I don't know. It doesn't seem like they're needed to me. That's my opinion. All right. Let's put our resistor in, and we will fire this bad boy up. Trying not to blow in the mic. I always forget that this thing's strapped to my head, so when I'm trying to cool off a solder joint, it sounds like a hurricane's going on at your end. Okay, resistor is in. We're going to fold it over. Using my trusty wooden stick. Again, we're leaving it off the board a little bit. We're making sure that we don't have any potential shorts. I don't want it close to any other pins. You know, there should be plenty of distance in there so it ain't going to short out. And there is. You know, if you're worried about it, you can even, you know, tweak it a little bit, adjust it, however you need to do it. Just don't touch it to the board. Leave it floating a little bit. See, we got a little bit of air under there. 5 millimeters. Okay, let's fire this guy up. Hopefully we can remain on a roll today. I might, let's see, what are we at here? Stream time, hour and 30. I might take a break after this. Take a break, grab a little snack, see what the wife is doing. Power is on. Oh, you need audio to hear sound. I need an audio signal. There we go. Line in. We have woofage. I'm not going to get the speaker this time. You just have to believe me. Here, let's get the, let's put our little scope out. I haven't done that yet today. Our trusty little Quemont $20-some oscilloscope. It's a good deal. If you work on audio equipment, you should buy one of these, or if you want to work on audio equipment, or even if you just want to fix your own speakers, it's worth the buy. Well worth the money. You don't have to spend, you know, a ton on a decent scope. You could spend a little bit on a decent scope. Alright. Let's hook up our audio lines, which are probably not going to want to stay on because they are bent and abused. These are the cheapest clips that you can possibly find. But if you look, set the trigger, we have audio. There it is. I'm putting 34 hertz into it, and I am getting 30. Let's turn the speed up a little bit. There we go. Gives a little bit more accurate result. 34.21 hertz coming out of it, according to the little screen there. Granted, this is not calibrated, not accurate, so I don't know exactly what we're getting out, but 34.21 compared to 34 is close enough for me. My ears can't hear the difference between a tenth or 2/10 of a hertz, so I'm definitely not one of those people that uses $500 cables to run to my speakers, because to me, I can't hear the difference. Some people have, supersonic hearing. I'm not one of them. But we're on, we're powered up, our resistor is getting hot, and we'll let this run for a little bit. And I think I'm going to take a break. I'm going to clean up the amps that are repaired, maybe get them boxed up. I'll be back. I'll be back again in a little bit. I got a lot more to do. Like I said, I want to get through as many of these R-112 series amps. 112, 115. I think I have a 110. I have at least 6 or 8 more to go. So we're just going to keep jamming, keep getting these things repaired, updated, and maybe get some of them listed. Post a few on Facebook, post a few on eBay, and I'll post a few on the Klipsch forums, and we'll see if we can get some of these out of here. That would be wonderful. But alright, thanks for tuning in. I will be back in a little bit. If I don't see you again later,